Well, the guys get together in Washington. Senator McConnell was asked by the press, what if the president begins to issue a flurry of executive orders without Congress? And the senator said it would be like waving a red flag in front of a bull. So I hope those bulls don't charge at each other. And really, they're trying to get together. And I think the American people would like to see them do that. Terry?
Well, the message they sent, I think, this week was that they want things done differently in Washington. And so we hope that message is here. Here's Jennifer Wishon with that story.
One day after his Democrat allies fell out of power on Capitol Hill, President Obama responded with some faint praise.
Obviously, Republicans had a good night, and they deserve credit for running good campaigns.
But if you're expecting the commander-in-chief to announce a major change of course, prepare to be disappointed.
It doesn't make me mopey. It energizes me.
Mr. Obama was resolute, defiant even, as he defended his record and administration, despite low approval ratings. He says he'll look for opportunities to work with Republicans, but when pressed, showed few signs of changing his arm's-length approach to the GOP.
What I am going to try to do as president is to make sure that I'm advancing what I think is best for the country.
He also doubled down on his plans to craft an executive order on immigration, a move sure to sour any bipartisan goodwill.
It's like waving a red flag in front of a bull to say, if you guys don't do what I want, I'm going to do it on my own. And the president's done that on Obamacare. He's done it on immigration and threatening to do it again.
Future Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he wants to make the Senate productive again and says his fellow Republicans want to address immigration reform through legislation. If they do, President Obama says he'll withdraw his executive action.
If, in fact, there is a great eagerness on the part of Republicans to tackle a broken immigration system, then they have every opportunity to do it.
As the dust settles, we're learning that values voters, including evangelicals, help propel Republicans to control the Senate. A public opinion strategies poll shows 1 out of every 3 voters was a conservative Christian.
It's larger than the African American vote, the Hispanic vote, the union vote, and the gay vote combined. So I think the message is there's no Republican wave in 2014. And there is no conceivable Republican majority in the United States without this constituency as the cornerstone of that majority.
Republicans may not stay on top long if they don't find a remedy for the main issue that sent voters to the polls: lingering economic pain. Americans plagued by the economic recession sent the president to the White House in 2008. 6 years later, exit polls show many of those same Americans feel left behind economically. And those voters supported Republicans 2-1.
Let me make it clear there will be no government shutdowns and no default on the national debt.
But as long as President Obama occupies the White House, there will be an ongoing showdown over Obamacare, with McConnell promising to try to get rid of key parts of the unpopular law.
I think we will be addressing that issue in a variety of different ways.
And the president saying he'll be on the other side of that fight.
There are certainly some lines I'm going to draw. Repeal of the law, I won't sign.
So while there's talk now of bipartisanship, there are also signs the deep divides between the two sides isn't likely to go away in the last 2 years of the Obama presidency. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, the White House.
Thanks, Jennifer. I think everybody has to keep in mind that the reason that there was a major shift in the election is that the people didn't want the Democrats, they wanted the Republicans. They didn't. That's why the Senate went from the Democrats to the Republicans. And that's why I understand that there are now more Republican legislators in the states than there have been at any time since the 1920s. And the Republicans picked up a couple of key gubernatorial races and held on to some others in some so-called blue states. It was just remarkable what they did. And for some reason, the president doesn't seem aware of it. He said, well, yeah, 1/3 of the people went to the polls and voted, but I represent the other 2/3. He does no such thing. They just didn't like him, and he won't admit it. That's, what do they call it, cognitive dissonance? There are all kinds of names they give that, but he doesn't want to admit what's there. But I think the Republicans are taking a very cautious attitude, which I think is wise. It's going to be incremental, so you don't like all of Obamacare, so you start taking the parts of it that are obnoxious and getting bills that go through the Congress with bipartisan support, and then defy the president to veto them. If he begins to veto, he's going to go down in flames. So they've got the whip handle, if I can use that term, and they're going to use it very judiciously, but I think they're going to be able to do it. And what they don't need is just a whole lot of inflammatory rhetoric. The American people want to get this country back on track, and they want to get people working. People are out of work, and it hurts when they haven't got jobs or they're underperforming what their education calls for. And they're asking for change. And the change would be you take away some of these regulatory burdens and you start lifting some of these tax burdens. And that's what the governors have done in state after state, especially in the Midwest. And you look at a guy like John Kasich in Ohio, he just swamped the opposition because the blue-collar people identify with a guy like John Kasich. He speaks their language, but it's a compassionate conservative, and it's working very, very well. Well, in other news, Russia is putting on another demonstration. Putin, as I've said before, is slightly nuts, and he's got a huge armament at his disposal. And John Jessup has this story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. Here's John.
Pat, Russia has been test-firing intercontinental ballistic missiles from a submarine. According to some media reports, it launched 2 of the missiles within a week, and one of them has a range of more than 7,400 miles. Vladimir Putin has been working to substantially upgrade the Russian Navy. Meanwhile, the president of Poland has signed into law a new national defense strategy. It's aimed at addressing the threats from the fighting in Ukraine and what it calls Russia's intensifying policy of confrontation. Police in Pakistan have arrested up to 45 Muslims in connection with the killing of a Christian couple for allegedly desecrating the Quran. Police say hundreds of Muslims took part in the attack earlier this week. The mob killed the couple and burned their bodies in a brick kiln where the husband and his wife had worked. Under the country's harsh blasphemy laws, anyone convicted of insulting Islam or the Prophet Muhammad can be sentenced to death, but the laws are often misused to settle vendettas and target minorities like Christians. Well, for several weeks now, violent riots and terror attacks have rocked eastern Jerusalem as Palestinians accuse Israel of endangering the Al-Aqsa Mosque. But what's really behind the attacks? Chris Mitchell files this report from Jerusalem.
It happened again on Wednesday. A Palestinian terrorist used a vehicle as a weapon to plow into Israelis, killing 1 and wounding 13 others. The attack took place at this intersection not too far from Jerusalem's Old City. It's the second attack of this kind in just the past 2 weeks, and many are wondering if this is the new weapon of choice for Palestinian terrorists. Later, another terrorist rammed into 3 soldiers at a bus stop outside Jerusalem. Earlier in the day, Palestinians rioted on the Temple Mount. Police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld said they're separate issues.
There are tensions in Jerusalem, but our aim is to do everything possible to both deal with these types of incidents and, of course, stay one step ahead and prevent those incidents from taking place.
But Hamas itself made the connection. Shortly after the first attack, the terror group said it was intended to defend Al-Aqsa, the mosque on the Temple Mount. There are a growing number of Jews that want to pray on the Mount, where only Muslims are allowed to pray. The Israeli government says it won't allow that to happen. But Israel says Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is inciting violence by telling Palestinians that the Al-Aqsa Mosque is in danger.
We've seen that on a ground level. We felt that. The Israeli police have had to deal with Palestinian suspects throwing stones at police officers.
The Israeli Foreign Ministry posted this video it says shows Palestinian youth preparing and fighting Israeli police on the Temple Mount. Palestinian affairs expert Pinkas Inbari says the trouble is part of a bigger plot.
No, it is not spontaneous. It is coming from, basically it is from Muslim Brotherhood, and behind the Muslim Brotherhood is the Qatar.
Hamas is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, which has the Nusra group in Syria and Beit al-Maqdis in the Egyptian Sinai.
All of them together, and they want to make Jerusalem the main subject, top of the agenda, in order to regain the Arab masses again.
And Bari says Abbas stopped short of directly paying Palestinians to commit terror, but Hamas is filling in the gap. However, he says the call to violence is not resonating with most Palestinians.
It is far, far below the expectation of Muslim Brotherhood. Jerusalem, by far, generally speaking, is not dragged into the conflict.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
This weekend marks 1 year since the powerful super typhoon Haiyan struck the Philippines, killing thousands of people. George Thomas visited the scene right after the storm, and he's now returned for a look at the rebuilding efforts 12 months later.
Yeah.
Is this where you were born?
Yeah.
Charlie Cedeno was born in Tacloban City. The neighborhood he grew up in sits just a few hundred feet from the Philippine coast. Today, the unimaginable task of rebuilding a mess that looks like this. I was here days after Typhoon Haiyan slammed into Cedeno's coastal neighborhood. This footage shot on a small drone shows the devastation. 8,000 people died on November 8, 2013. Tacloban was hardest hit, with 30,000 homes destroyed. Today there are many people who are still living in tents.
Marami pa.
Yes, that's right. And many haven't left because they don't have a house to live in.
Michael Saoy is among the 15,000 still living in tents or makeshift homes. In a year, the government here has managed to build only 50 new homes.
It's still very hard and little has changed. I'm looking for ways I can overcome my situation, but the government is moving too slow.
Show us where your room is. Show us where... Cedeno is one of the fortunate to have a new home. CBN Disaster Relief built him and 1,500 other families transitional homes. And when the typhoon destroyed the company where he worked, CBN Disaster Relief hired him.
I'm so happy because they gave us a house and they gave me a job. I'm proud to be part of an organization that really helps people.
There were about 16,000 businesses operating here in Tacloban prior to Typhoon Haiyan. Today, about 7,000 are back in business. One of them is Calizi Cafe, owned and operated by Jerry Ruiz. So, Jerry, what are we eating today?
Oh, we're having the classic, the best sellers of Cali.
The restaurant suffered a lot of damage, but 2 weeks after the typhoon hit, he decided to open for business to send a message to his city.
We were trying to set an example. It was trying to get the morale of everybody to get things back to normal.
This Saturday, marking the one-year anniversary, Michael Dikatimbag will join his countrymen in remembering that fateful day. He lost his mother in the typhoon, and today, she, along with 3,000 others, are buried in this mass grave.
It's very painful to know that she's here, but I cannot grieve forever. I have to try to move on in the midst of this storm.
City officials are putting the final names of the deceased on crosses before Saturday.
The difficult part is that you are burying people, and this weighs on our hearts. But it's our duty to create a sacred place that people can come and remember.
George Thomas, CBN News, Tacloban, Philippines.
Heartbreaking losses, but as he said in that report, we must go on. And Pat, CBN and Operation Blessing are helping them do just that.
Well, that's what's so wonderful. We were able to reach out, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so excited. 1,500 dwellings for those people. I mean, that's what CBN, Disaster Relief. We have two arms. CBN itself has relief, Orphan Promise has relief, and Operation Blessing. And so all around the world, we're helping the poor and the needy, and they're in desperate condition. We get there fast, you know, in the time of maximum emergency, when they need food, they need water, they need shelter, they need medicine, and we get there quickly. We don't have a lot of bureaucracy that holds us down. We can move fast, and we do. And the people appreciate it. And if you want to participate in helping the poor and the needy around the world, it's CBN Disaster Relief Fund. It's CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. And as Thanksgiving comes up and Christmas comes up, this would be a wonderful way of showing that you're thankful and grateful to the Lord that you want to help somebody else. And I've always felt that's an important part of our worship to God. You say, God, you've blessed us with bounty and abundance and a warm house and clothes and all the things that go along with a prosperous society. And we can reach out with a little bit of what's turned over to us and give it to those less fortunate. So there's the telephone number, 1-800-759-0700, or you can log on to CBN Disaster Relief, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, and we'd be very grateful to receive and immediately disperse those.
What a wonderful picture of hope in the midst of devastation that's still really mind-boggling.
You know, George, God bless him. You know, he's Indian by background, but because of his demeanor, he can get along with everybody. I mean, he functions in the Muslim world, in the Arab world, in the remote areas of Tibet and Mongolia, and here he is in the Philippines and everywhere. He's a brilliant reporter, and he's one of the best on television, if not the best in this kind of story.
Oklahoma Senator-elect James Langford says he'll bring his biblical worldview to bear on problems like the national debt. He says the book of Nehemiah stresses the importance of retiring debt and rebuilding infrastructure. He also told Tony Perkins of the Family Research Council he'll work to protect the religious rights of all Americans at work and in every part of life. Langford is a longtime Baptist minister, and he says Americans who are concerned about the nation's problems should pray as much as they complain. A West Virginia University freshman is now the youngest lawmaker in America. CBN News first told you about Sarah Blair back in August when she was campaigning out of her dorm room. The fiscally conservative 18-year-old was elected to the State House of Delegates Tuesday. She'll represent a small district in West Virginia's Eastern Panhandle. Blair defeated her 44-year-old Democratic opponent 63% to 30%. Blair used her age as a campaigning tool, saying the voice of young voters should be heard in the state capitol. You can see our CBN News report on her and always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website, cbnnews.com.